thought I'd show you how I like to prepare my hexagons for English paper piecing. I like to use freezer paper. There are lots of other methods, but I like the freezer paper method. I have a lot of freezer paper left from some foundation piecing projects because I like to use it for that too. The first thing I do with my leftover freezer paper, and I learned this the hard way, is to just kind of mark the dull side of the paper, because I found that it's really hard to distinguish the dull from the shiny side when you're ironing it down. So I just use a Sharpie and just kind of draw squiggles on it, since these are scraps of paper. Then the project I'm working on right now is 1/2 inch hexes. So I have this little Fiskars, I think, paper punch. This is a 1/2 inch punch. So each side of this hexagon is 1/2 inch in size. And I just punch out a bunch of little hexes using the punch. This is so much quicker than cutting them out. Truly, whoever invented these punches needs to get a medal. So I cut out a whole bunch of little hexes. Well, I didn't cut them, I used the punch, of course. The next thing I do is to cut the fabric into strips. These are 1/2 inch hexes, and I find that if I cut 1.5 inch strips out of my fabric, that is the best way to waste the least amount of fabric when making hexes, because I like to be kind of frugal. Okay, so for now I'm just gonna cut 1.5 inch strip, but you can cut as many as you want. You can get about 30 1/2 inch hexes out of one width of fabric by width of fabric 1.5 inch strips. So you can kind of do the math and see how many strips you need. Okay, so I have my hexes and my fabric strips on the ironing board. To iron this fabric first to make it kind of smooth. I normally only iron to about the halfway point, so because I find if I make strips too long, they just pop off. So okay, so there's my fabric ironed. Here are my hexes, and I'm going to lay them shiny side down on the wrong side of the fabric. Get this in view. This way. Note the direction. And I space them about 1/2 inch apart. No need to be too overly accurate, but kind of just try and put them in a line, see straight edges facing like this, about 1/2 inch apart. I can get about 15 on half the width of the fabric. And see how the fact that I marked the dull side of these with a marker helps me know exactly which side is the downside. Because if you look at this one, let me get it over here. This one I kind of missed. And that's the dull side, and that's the shiny side. But the only way to really figure it out is to kind of turn it into the light. And if you do that for every one, it wastes a lot of time. So just scribbling some scribbles on the dull side helps speed up this process significantly. Okay, so now you can see there's the line. I've lined up about 15 of them. That's how many fit on half the width of the fabric. And I'm gonna iron them down. I just take my iron and lay it down and move it ever so slightly. Don't try to iron, mostly press, otherwise you'll just move them. Go and then move over to the next section. Iron them down. The iron is really hot, so you don't need to spend too much time on this. When they're all down, I kind of just move across to here, move across to here, and then I cut this piece of fabric here about 1/4 inch from that side and set it aside. Be careful not to fold it at this point because the wax is still wet and they will pop off. Actually, never fold it. Try and keep it flat as you can. I'm going to put it aside, take the other half of this strip of fabric and do exactly the same thing. I made 2 strips of hexes over here. Sometimes I make up to 6. It just depends on how many I need and how many I feel I can safely carry upstairs. Next, I will show you how I cut them out and glue them.